Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to support play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, which are just conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can find all of the Porch Play Chats on very different sites. So if you go to ipausa.org, up in the top right-hand corner, there are all the links to Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Spotify. All of the Porch Play Chats are being uploaded to Spotify, but you can find every one of them if you subscribe to Facebook and friend us on, subscribe to YouTube and friend us on Facebook. Magically, every Monday morning, a new one will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Kristy. Hi, Kristy DeGraaf. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We are just wonderful. So Kristy is a board member of IPA USA in charge of our social media. Bless her very much. Every day I say thank you because I'm old and stupid when it comes to that. Kristy grew up in a really playful family. She loved her childhood and early adult years, but found as she grew up that she started to lose some of that playfulness. So she left social work as a career and opened her family childcare program. Bev Bos, Lisa Murphy, and others have been instrumental in expanding her understanding and shifting her perspective on the importance of play. She owns a learning tree and is a coach who supports others in incorporating play into their programs. And she was awarded the National TLCCF Teacher of the Year in 2014, and she lives in Southern Utah. So you should visit her
Oh, incredible.
program. It's amazing. So what are we talking about today?
Well, I thought we could chat about how programs can support play through communication with parents and what you can do to kind of help bring parents on board.
Oh,
Because
I think that's a great topic.
yeah, that is one thing that I hear over and over again. I mean, I do a lot on social media and I post a lot of messy play. I post a lot of the kids playing in the sandbox with water or, in different situations that are really messy. And one of the top comments that I get is, my parents would never go for that. I could never do that because I believe in messy play, but my parents won't let me do that. So, so I've come up with some things that work for me, but I thought we could maybe chat about that a little.
About. I think that's a great idea because I agree. And sometimes I wonder if it's the individual who doesn't want the messy play,
Yeah.
but other times I remember parents would come in and say, I don't want them to get dirty. And I would just say to them, they get dirty here.
Yeah.
And so, don't send them in designer clothes
Yeah.
because yeah, we're going to paint, we're going to play with Play-Doh, we're going to do shaving cream, or we can change their clothes before we do messy play, but they're going to get messy. So,
Yeah. I think there is definitely the element of it is easy to push the blame off to somebody else if you don't want to do it as a provider. Um, but I think, like if we're gonna believe what people say, like that definitely is an issue for parents. Because the other thing is I've had some parents comment on my videos and say, I would not ever be okay with that. And so I think that is one element, right? And this is a little hard for me because I do think all children deserve the right to messy play. However, um, the way that I run my program, like if I want to make sure that I facilitate that and take care of myself and the kids that I have in my program, I do have to recognize that my program is not the right place for everyone.
mm-hmm.
And so I start this by knowing that I'm not for everyone and that's okay. And then in the spirit of that, providing really clear communication up front that we play here, we play messy here, your children will get dirty. Like that's in my handbook. That's in, I have a separate document called Parent Expectations. Um, and so there's a line in there about children need to come in clothes ready to play that are, okay for messy play, good for the weather. And then also when we do the tour, that is something that I am really clear about. We go out into our outdoor classroom. I show them the space. I explain, like, please do not bring them in their best clothes. They will get messy here. So I think that's the start of it, is that clear communication up front.
Yes. And I think if parents, and if they know, and you're always asking them to bring an extra set of clothes, like if a mom came in knowing we did messy play and she said, they're going to the doctor and I'll pick them up at 3:15. I'll say, we'll change their clothes before
Exactly.
you go. Yeah.
It's not like we're completely inflexible on this. It's not like they are going home every day like a complete mess, but they need to know like that's the normal part of play, is that they might get dirty. And you know what? Listen, if the kids don't want to jump in the wet sandbox, they don't have to either. Because that's the other element, is people will say, well, my child doesn't like that. And that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But what I see sometimes, or what I have seen in the past, sometimes is, parents would bring their children in, and then in front of me, they would tell their 2 or 3-year-old, now be really careful about your clothes because those are brand new shoes and we don't want them to get ruined.
Oh,
And I literally one time told a mom, take them home. If that is a problem for you, you need to take them home. So that's kind of, I think, the second part, is that we have to have this really clear ongoing communication with parents and follow through with what they saw in the tour and what they read in the handbook, right? I mean, we have to not be afraid to do paint without smocks if we say we do that, right? Or to let the kids play in the sandbox, even if, if there's this concern about what the parents are going to think, because you have to kind of like show up how you say you're going to show up. And back to what you said, though, I do think it's important, like, as a regular practice, no, I don't have the capacity to change everyone's clothes every day. But if they have something after, of course, like, as long as that relationship is there with that parent, it's really easy to do that when requested. But I think as a regular practice, they just have to know what it's going to look like at the end of the day.
exactly. And we're not going to send them home with mud dripping down their bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So when we're talking messy play, it's messy play.
Yeah.
But they wash their hands. They
Yes.
If-
We wipe off their faces, we wash their hands, and they do have to, that's another part of it, is I do ask for them to bring 2 changes of extra clothes.
nice.
So that we should always, in theory, have extra clothes on hand to change them if they really are like uncomfortable, wet, dirty,
Yeah.
like, because obviously we're going to want to adjust that. Now in the summer, when we are really, really, really dirty, really messy, like we got the hose out, we got the whole sandbox filled up, then we'll just preemptively change into swimsuits, for example.
Of course.
So there are ways to mitigate it, so we're not sending them into their cars, completely disgusting and wet. And I think people, again, that comes back to that communication about what this looks like. And this means that you really should not bring your nicest clothes, because they probably will get dirty, but we're also going to take care of them in this other way.
Of course. I think the secret, the way we did extra clothes is, I would say to families, if they grow out of something, bring them so that we can put them in the closet and we have extra clothes, and other parents can take them if they need them, right? So it is this community that you're building that supports each other so that you always have extra clothes in the closet. Now, of course, my center had 150 children, right?
Yeah.
So we had 150 children. I told parents around, I don't know, October, if they're not using the toys that you had before, and you know you're going to be buying them more for Christmas, bring them in and we'll put them in the closet, and parents can come and look and see if they could take them and their child would be ready for them. And we'll do an estimate of age of when they might like it. And so it was a toy exchange, clothing exchange. It was a community support for those families. And they would say, I forgot a change of clothes. I said, I'm sure we've got something in the closet. Don't worry about it. Right. So, and then the parents would go, oh, okay, good. I don't have to go back home. No, I'm sure we have something in the closet. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it.
Well, and that's sort of the third piece is that I think also when I first started, I kind of was like, well, you have to bring you are responsible. You have to bring all, they have to have two extra pairs of clothes and they have to have weather appropriate clothes. And I've shifted my attitude just a little because I mean, number one, I actually remember what it's like to be a really young working mom who was completely overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm,
who had, like a lot going on. And I know sometimes like it is hard for providers to remember that, but
mm-hmm,
but I know what that's like. But number two, I think sometimes like I have asked parents to bring like an entire set of clothes, snow clothes, for example,
mm-hmm,
for the winter. And one year we were going through a severe drought. We hardly had any snow. And this mom had brought all of this new stuff. Like she'd purchased all of this new stuff, and I had an entire set here. And I don't think we even took the tags off of it because we just didn't have the days with the snow when she was here. And that started to get me thinking about it. In addition to like, I think more people are having these discussions it about access to play, right? And about families being able to choose these sorts of programs if they don't have an access to a regular washer and dryer, or if they don't have the capacity to go out and buy all of these things. So at that point, I started to be a little bit more intentional about, okay, like, I mean, I had a lot of things already gathered, but starting to ask for specific donations. Um,
mm-hmm.
donations of shorts and pants, donations of swimsuits, donations of, snow boots and different things that were sometimes a little harder for parents to provide. So just providing the support where you can as a program, I think is really, really vital as well. So that those kids who maybe um whose parents might not have the capacity to
Mm-hmm.
bring everything that you need, at least still have access to that and that there's some support there.
Well, and you could have the best relationship with your families, but they still may not feel comfortable telling you about their economic situation, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
supporting them that way is by asking others, just bring in if they outgrow them and we'll just stick them in the closet for people who need them. It is really helpful. And the closet
Yeah.
it was in a hallway, but it was at the end of the hallway. So parents could go in there without other people watching them, right? Or noticing that they were going in to get something. So, that I think is the other piece, wherever you have these extra things, teachers could easily go in and get it if a child had an accident and they'd already gone through clothes that day. But it parents need to feel comfortable and not be embarrassed that they need to go there. We say, oh, just go to the closet. There's stuff in there. Don't worry about it. And
Yeah.
and that they just go, oh, they're here to support me as well as my child, which is so important.
Well, and I think you can also frame it in the context of just being economical, right? Like outside of like economic programs, but reduce, reuse, recycle sort of things, right?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm,
kids can grow out of these things in a couple of months. And so my oldest is 21. I have some of her old snow gear from when she was little. just because, you know, where we live, it's maybe not as intense as other places, but that stuff will last for a long time. So you can frame it that way as well. So it doesn't have to be shameful. It doesn't even have to be about economics. It can just be about functionality. And I think that that can be really supportive. Where I've ended up landing is, just telling parents basically like, please bring them a good jacket or coat, because that's something that they're going to need and that they can easily take home and leave. Although I do have some extras of those, but I say in general, if you can bring this and an appropriate pair of shoes, then, like if there are other things that you need, we can make sure that we have them. So,
Yeah.
and I
And that
think it's,
must be such a big relief for families who might be struggling economically, or for families who have, you know, such crazy schedules that I forgot. I didn't remember that you go, it's okay. We have backups. Don't worry. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think that attitude of wanting to support families is really valuable in nurturing your relationship. I mean, and obviously you have to be careful between like supporting families and just being, completely used and abused. But if it's built on that desire to help and support from a place where you can, I think
Hmm.
that you're going to have a lot more success. So,
Well, and your families are going to be invested in your program, and they're going to say nice things about you in the community, not to use you, but to
yeah,
appreciate you, right? And there will always be people that try to use you. So know
yeah,
that. But most families are grateful and appreciative of
yeah.
what you
What
do.
One thing I always try to remind providers is that we are on the same team. And I think
Hmm.
we forget that.
Hmm.
I remember when I first started, my two kids were 2 and 4, and I had been working. I was a social worker at that point. And so I knew intimately what it was like to be a working mom and the challenges that come with that. And I started taking these childcare classes with other providers in town. And my initial impression was, wow, like you
Like,
don't remember what it's like. I was shocked at the way that they were talking about parents.
hmm
Now, it has been 17 years, and I know there are things that are frustrating about those relationships with parents sometimes, but there
hmm
are things that are frustrating about every relationship. And if we can go back to this idea that we're on the same team, and that team is team kid, right? Like that's team childhood, team like play. Let's make this a great supportive experience for your child. Then we're going to have a lot better results and a lot more fun and a lot more play. And it's just going to be better for the children overall.
and we're showing, when families are struggling and maybe they're, I've been, fortunately, I was in programs for a long time, right? So I was a director for 5 years or a director for 8 years in a particular program. And I got to know those families so that when they came in and were not
Hmm.
as pleasant as normal, right? I would say, did you have a bad day? They would go, oh my God, I can't even. And that was it. And I say, why don't you come in and sit down and just, you know, just let's just get it out of what happened today. Because I would rather them do that with me than they do that with their child when, they go into the classroom and say, hurry up, we've got to get blah, blah, blah. And so and the parents would sometimes they'd walk in, like this, and I go straight in front of them and say, whoa, what's going on? And
Hmm.
they would say, oh my God, I'm just so stressed out. And I'd say, do you have time to come and have some tea or coffee? And they would say, oh, that would just be wonderful. I just had a horrible time trying to get here and the traffic was awful. And I said, just sit for a few minutes. You need some time. And everybody has fluctuations in how they're feeling every day.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have to be the person that helps them, that helps to listen, because I'd much rather they do it with me than they do it with their child. And so that they're able to come down a little bit before they have to go and greet their child and then go home and, cook dinner and, do the homework or whatever they're having to do.
Yeah.
They need some time for themselves. So I think those are things that we do that support that relationship as
It's
well as support the family.
it's easy to forget how important that piece of humanity is,
Mhm.
for parents and their children, and like you said, that whole family. You know, I saw a comment recently on social media, that, they said, well, you can tell what kind of parenting, you know, somebody has by the way that their child behaves in public. And of
Oh,
course,
really?
listen, a lot of people jumped on that, and there was some really valuable conversation there. But my thought was, gosh, like sometimes adults can't even behave in public, right? And we just all need to remember that we are human. And like you said, um we have a variety of things that happen to us, and that connection and that grounding and that capacity for us to be a safe place for the children and their families, I think is really valuable. And it
And I
obviously,
think it can be reciprocated too.
yes, yes,
You're having a bad day. And they're like, it looks like you're having a bad day. And you say, oh my goodness, the children have been great, but this and this
yeah,
happened. And parents are like, do you need anything? I mean, it was this reciprocal
yes,
support system where you're seen as a human too, right? So
yeah.
I think those are the things that really strengthen those relationships. And when their child has mud from head to toe and you say, I haven't washed him off with the hose yet,
Right.
can you wait 10 minutes?
Yeah.
We'll get him clean before he gets in the car. They're like, oh, thank you. Instead of, "Look, he has mud." You see, it's just such a different climate
Yeah.
between the family and you.
It
If you,
creates a culture of connection and support and love, which is like an incredible ground and foundation for that play and connection and capacity that we want kids to have growing up. So,
yeah. Yeah. So meeting the parents where they are, and just as we do with children, and baby stepping them into understanding the importance of messy play and the importance of how you're going to help to mitigate the mess
mhm.
that the child might be in before the parents come.
Mitigate the mess. I love that.
Yeah, just mitigate it. It will give them, so your child needs that experience. I understand you don't like to provide those experiences because of your stuff, and that's fine, but they need it, so let us do it.
Let us
And
do it here, and you can take them home and give them a bath and snuggle their nice clean hair, and it's the perfect balance, right? Like we can
it
facilitate the
is,
mess and you get the rest.
yes, absolutely. So I think that's such a powerful message for early care and education professionals, because you have to help parents recognize the importance of that,
Mhm.
but help to mitigate the outcomes that they may be
Yeah.
afraid of. And that's, I think it's a great conversation. So any final comments before we close out?
I mean, I think again, it just comes back to connection and love and that playfulness and those relationships. And
I,
yeah, this
I
this
don't think
conversation
it can.
ended up a little more connected and lovely than I expected it to with this topic. But
Well, there you go. Because, well, I think it's such a real issue. And
mhm.
I remember, teachers in my program who were typically empathetic and loving teachers would say something about a family that was awful. And I would say, oh, let's go talk. Hey, where did that come from? And, what is it? What work do you need to do to get that, to deal with this? Because
Yeah,
this family needs to be supported. And and the teachers would go, oh, it just triggered me. I don't know why it triggered me. And I'd say, well, think about why it triggered you, because there's something there that
Yeah.
needs to sort of be lifted up so that we can deal with it. And they would say, I'm so embarrassed that I even thought that. And I said, I know, and I'm appreciative that you're embarrassed, but we need to fix it, right? We need to find out what's happening with you that's making you feel that way. And so it was this partnership of trying to figure that out, so that when they had those feelings again, they were able to go, oh, there I go again, what's happening, instead
I
of
I
just reacting.
I do really think that our relationships with the parents impact our relationships with the children.
Yes.
And that can be a hard truth for some people, but I think it is really difficult to love and care for children when you are so frustrated and hateful toward their parent.
Yeah.
So, I think
And the kids get mixed messages. I love my teacher and I love my mommy and daddy, but my teacher doesn't like my mommy and daddy, and my mommy and daddy don't love my teacher. And
and
they,
they can pick up on that vibe.
so really, you gotta keep your stuff with your stuff.
Yeah.
You need to deal with your stuff and work with it and talk to people about it and get support for it. But whew, those parent relationships are really important. Kristi, thank you so much. Stay right there while I close this out. So to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.